Ah.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Richard Piper, and I work for Alcohol Change UK. We're the charity that exists to end alcohol harm, although we're not anti-alcohol. We believe that the harm from alcohol is completely avoidable, and we work hard to end it. We're also the organisation behind Dry January, Sober Spring, and a range of other experiences that help people take control of their drinking. Very warm welcome to you. We are here today, everybody, to talk about drinking at home, and in particular, I love the title of this session, how to stop it. Admirably blunt and direct and clear kind of call to action for people. And we've got a fantastic panel who I'm going to be asking to introduce themselves in just a moment. And we're going to be exploring their experiences and as well as their expertise of, drinking at home, what's different about drinking at home, and also, what are the key things you need to be doing if you want to cut down or stop drinking at home. So to kick us off, I'm going to ask first Lateef, then Laura, and then Ian. If you could just briefly introduce, firstly, where you're at in terms of drinking sort of now, just so we can get a feel for that, where you used to be at, but we'll have more time to talk later. So maybe just a brief summary of kind of where you used to be at. And also, I guess why you're here today, what your link is, I suppose, with this space, this mindful drinking space. So over to you, Lateef, then Laura, then Ian.
Thanks very much, Richard. So I think my journey to this particular moment has been quite interesting. I drank very heavily through my for most of my life, if I'm very honest, and I think that sort of started to culminate when I got very busy with work, and I managed to realise that I developed some harmful relationship with alcohol, and I wanted to change that. I wanted to reframe my relationship or reset it, kind of as it said at the start of this call. So I think it's really important to say that I'm a drinker now, but I guess I'd call myself a moderate drinker. I guess I'm happy to say that I'm not the same person who has to drink on a Tuesday just to be able to get into work on a Wednesday, and that's been really freeing for me, and that freedom and that sort of benefit that I got from my life I wanted to share with other people who I thought were in a similar space to me. So I've got a very barky dog, if you can hear anything in the background. And so I set up a small company called the Wagon, which is an alcohol-free pop-up bar. So we do very high-quality alcohol-free cocktails. As you can see, we've got some bottles behind us, and giving you a sort of out experience of really high-end, quite fancy cocktails, but they don't have alcohol in them. We're in the middle of creating a delivery box around that now, so you can have everything that you need to have a great drink at home that doesn't have alcohol. So that's me.
Thanks very much, Lateef. If you just want to put yourself on mute, fantastic. Although your dog's gorgeous, we probably just want to hear from Laura as well. So, Laura, over to you.
Hi, thanks for having me here. So I haven't drunk alcohol now for over 3.25 years. When I decided to stop drinking, I was working from home, and I was also I'm a mum, so actually I would leave work, which is my house, go and pick up the school, come back to my house. And so I was a long time before that really stopped going to pubs and clubs. So my drinking really did just happen at home. I wasn't, so I would probably start drinking early evening when the whole bath and bedtime routine started to happen and the sensory overload came in, the kids are tired, everyone's tired. And so I found very quickly that I was using alcohol as a bit of a crutch to get me through that part of the day. And it wasn't really for enjoyment or pleasure. And so that's when I started to think and reflect upon how I was drinking and why I was drinking. And I didn't feel comfortable with the choices I was making. So I think I thought about moderating for a while, or I tried it for a while, and it just didn't work for me. I'm very much an all or nothing type of person in most areas of my life. So moderating stuff is actually anything is really challenging. So very quickly, I kind of, well, not very quickly, but I soon came to realize that it was either alcohol or no alcohol. And my choice was quite binary, and I chose no alcohol. So yeah, that's where I am now. I'm really enjoying everything about having an alcohol-free lifestyle.
Fantastic. So we're going to hear more about how you got there later. But over to Ian now, just to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ian. I've been sober for about the same time as Laura, actually. I'm Club Soda member, and that's how I know Laura and Drew and everyone at Club Soda. Sober for over 3 years, and I was a heavy drinker before I became sober. I'd spent many years knowing that I was drinking too much, but progressively, despite me trying to stop and slow down and give myself lots of rules about when I should drink, only at weekends, maybe only 1 or 2 beers a night, I failed miserably because I wasn't clear enough in my objectives about what I actually wanted to do. I never really committed fully to it. And my drinking just got steadily worse over quite a long period of time, but it got to the point where I was getting drunk every night. That's exhausting. It's a horrible existence because you live in this perpetual cycle of regret and self-hate, and you tell yourself you're not going to drink when you wake up in the morning and you go through a work day, and slowly as the day goes on, you convince yourself that maybe it'll be okay if I have one when I get in, maybe 2 if they're on special at the supermarket. And that's what would happen every single day until one day I just came to a point where I just thought, this is going to kill me. I have to stop. I was lucky that my little sister, she's my best friend as well, we're really close, and she had stopped drinking. We would drink together all the time, and it would often be at home as well, which is I think why I've been asked to come on today, because I didn't go to the pub very often. It's more expensive. I get more for my bucks if I drank at home. So yeah, she'd stopped drinking 6 months prior to me, to the day. So she was already walking the walk, and I just turned to her. I said, "Sis, I need to stop. I've had it. I can't do this anymore." So she said, "Come round tonight and we'll have a chat." And we did. And I was determined at that point. It felt different. That time it felt different. It felt like I was going to do this. Yeah, and that was over 3 years ago now, and I haven't looked back. It's absolutely life-changing. So
Fantastic. Thanks, Ian.
That's what
we're going to hear more from you in a moment. That's really helpful. Thank you so much. Yeah, I really look forward to hearing more about that in the detail. And our final panelist this morning or afternoon or evening, depending where you are in the world, is Emma Gilmour. We're just doing very quick introductions, Emma, just where your drinking used to be, where it is now, if you're happy to share that, and also kind of your connection with the Global Mindful Drinking Festival, what you're here today for.
Yeah, well, I stopped drinking about 2 years ago. I started off aiming to do a year not drinking, and then I just it just felt like the right thing for me to carry on. I was a big party person. I kind of was in the 90s in Soho in London, and I lived that kind of lifestyle until I had my kids. And then even when we had our kids, we were still drinking a lot during the weekends, and lots of binge drinking, lots of parents coming around with kids, and just getting really hammered a lot of the time. And then it slowly started to take its toll on me. I began to feel really crappy about myself. The kind of normal story, my kids started to become teenagers and they started to comment on my drinking and asked me if I wouldn't bring wine into their bedrooms when I was putting them to bed and that sort of thing. So that was probably the kickstart. I had a breakdown because I was just working really hard and living on alcohol and caffeine and whatnot. And as I built myself back up, stopping drinking was part of that process for me. And sorry, what was the other question? What
you kind of do professionally, or in relation to kind of your connection, I suppose, with Club Soda or with the Global Mindful?
Yeah, sure. So I retrained as a counsellor and psychotherapist, and I'm a This Naked Mind coach as well. So that's what I do as my profession. I work with midlife women wanting to find their groove without the booze. And my connection with Club Soda, well, I went to the Global Drinking Festival last year as a newly qualified coach and participated in all the panel experiences and thought, this is so amazing. I would love to be on here one day. And a year later, how lucky am I?
Well, we're very lucky to have you. So
thank you.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you here. So I think a great way to start off would be just to have a little kind of reflection amongst the five of us, I guess, of sort of the reasons for drinking at home. And I think it's really healthy with all of these things that become bad habits to kind of almost see, that there are going to be some negative reasons, but there may also be some positive reasons. I think it's really important that we acknowledge the positive reasons, or what perceived as positive reasons for people that are getting into to drinking. We're all I think all five of us are kind of like come out the other side and to come at it with a particular lens. But people who might be at the start of the journey will be seeing positives potentially in their home drinking. So yeah, what were the initial causes and sort of feelings that led to drinking increasing? Well, we'll start with we'll take Laura and Ian first, I think, and then we'll come to Lateef and Emma second. So Laura, yeah, what reasons for drinking at home?
Well, I mean, just like Emma in the 90s, I was also in Soho, so maybe we were in the same bars at the same time at some point. But I mean, it was an organic thing, really. I had children. I spent less and less time outside of the home socializing. And soon it did become about actually managing the stress of motherhood, if I'm really honest. And there's quite a few Facebook groups out there for mums, and they all really do enable drinking quite strongly, or lots of them do. And there's always the messages like there's 5 o'clock somewhere, you can have your G&T now, or your beer, or your Prosecco. And it really was for me when you become a mother, it's a parent actually. It's you do lose a little bit of your identity, or there has to be a bit of a shift from pre-motherhood, where you could go out and wake up at 10 o'clock the next morning, to suddenly 5 o'clock wake ups and losing a bit of that identity. And I guess there was these Facebook groups are often trying to hold on to that and encouraging people to still drink with each other while you're doing all the stuff that you're doing. And it didn't, it was a positive in that it kept me connected, I guess, with other people, other at that time I was a stay-at-home mum, and other people who weren't getting out and connecting with other people face to face. And so there was this encouragement, this snowballing of that, and like all these mums somewhere in the world having it. There was even like Facebook posts where there would be cheers, and everyone would like suddenly put a selfie of themselves with their glasses of wine. And I was just watching this and just thinking, this doesn't feel healthy. And I don't want to judge people, because I was very much there. I'm not saying that I certainly don't want to come across as judgmental, but I just started to feel uncomfortable with that. And I had to change my narrative of what being a mum is. And and I had to find a new path. And I also had to find a new narrative of what being a not drinker was when I did decide to stop drinking, and find other things that gave me that input, that connection. And I think that alcohol does give you, whether you're in the pub or whether you're online talking to people.
Great, thanks very much, Laura. And Ian, what were your reasons for drinking at home?
Well, like I've kind of talked about already, it was a lot cheaper. I'm an introvert as well, so if I would go out, I'd normally drink before I went out, so I'd get myself on a level. I used to have this rule. I I used to smoke weed as well all the time, and I stopped doing that the moment I stopped drinking. And I would smoke 3 joints, have 3 beers, strong beers, and have 3 whiskies before I went anywhere. So whenever I got to the pub, I was already quite wasted, but you wouldn't tell too much. And then I'd spend the night at the pub seeing people, and I'd needed to get to that level for my kind of anxiety that I had underlying. And you know, by the end of it, everyone was drinking too slowly. It was just, I kind of felt like I wanted to drink more. I wanted to get more wrecked. It kind of, when I used to drink, I just used to want to just go full at it. And often you'd be in a situation where you're out, maybe with a nice meal with some friends or with your family or something, and it's not really the done thing to start smashing back beer after beer with whiskey chasers and everything. So I wasn't able to drink at the pace that I wanted to. And if I was able to, invariably I'd get absolutely wasted while I was out, and I could barely talk or walk, and it was just embarrassing. It was dangerous, and I just wanted to get home where I could get drunk, where nobody could watch me. So, and in the end, it just kind of, I just thought there's no point in going out. I'd go out, I'll still go out occasionally, but I thought, well, I've got it all here. I could smoke weed at home. So I'd end up, and it was a way to kind of dampen down all the angst and the noise that was in my head all the time. Self-medicating, basically. It's textbook self-medicating and then create a problem. And it just developed, and over time I just drank more and more, and yeah, it got to the point where I needed it to feel on a level, you know. So yeah, textbook introvert, drinking to kind of dull the noise in my head, and self-medicating with it, and it becomes addictive. It's an addictive substance. So you become addicted to it, and before you know it, you're drinking lots and lots every single night. So yeah, that's kind of how I got to it. But it's financial as much as anything else. So bad.
Yeah,
it's actually it's one of the reasons why I stopped. Would you believe? I obviously wanted to just, because I knew I was going to kill myself, but that wasn't quite enough for me. It was the fact that I was going to end up broke. I was going to end up on the street if I didn't stop drinking. It was the only way that I could see that I could save money. And I thought, I can't even afford to pay my rent this month. What am I going to do? And I thought, I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to stop drinking. So it's kind of like a financial incentive there to stop drinking first. I didn't even think of all the other benefits of drinking. I just thought, well, if I don't stop drinking, I'm going to be out on the streets. So yeah, it's mad that you can get to that kind of situation.
You also mentioned your sister, and your sister sort of being someone who sort of drank alongside you in a way, or at the same time as you.
Yeah. She we used to sing together in a band. We had a duo. I'd learnt guitar a few years ago through a period of depression, and we've always enjoyed singing. And she's got a fantastic voice, and we decided that it'd be quite a cool thing if we to go to pubs and do gigs and stuff with me playing guitar and singing, and we'd harmonise. So we're in this environment where you're in a pub and you're performing and you're just necking and you're getting free drinks from everyone. But when we'd practice as well, we would always get just so drunk. I'd go around to her house. She lives quite locally to me, so I'll take my guitar around there and we'd practice and everything, and we'd drink together, and we'd end up drinking till 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning on a school night, you know, and we'd get up for work, or she'd get up to take the kids to school the next day. And it seemed like, well, yeah, it's funny, aren't we? Rock and roll kind of thing. So we drank a lot together. We shared a lot together. We became very close because of it. And there were many times where we were saying to each other the next day, we'd say, oh my God, when I come over tonight to practice, we won't drink. Yeah, no drinking tonight. And that wouldn't work. She'd have bought a bottle of wine. I'd come around with a couple of beers and just say, oh, a couple will be okay, won't it? So yeah, and we tried many times to stop drinking together, but it was always half-hearted. And then one day she just stopped, and so it was very, very useful for me when I decided to stop, to be able to go to her and say, listen, what do I need to do? because, and she was fantastic. When she stopped drinking, she didn't push it on me. She didn't say, you've got to stop, because she knows how useless that is. It has to come from the person that wants to stop. And if it doesn't, then it's not going to happen. They have to want to stop drinking, like truly. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So, yeah, she didn't push it on me. She didn't say, you got, you know, judge me or anything. There was none of that. She just kind of, she was just there, ready for me when I was ready to stop. And when I was ready to stop, she was, yes, just obviously a massive support. And she actually put me onto Club Soda. She was a member of Club Soda when I stopped, and she said, I'll leave Club Soda because you need your own space, because you're going to be talking about lots of things, sharing a lot of stuff that you might not want me to see. So I'll leave Club Soda, you join Club Soda because it's awesome. And I've got another group that I'll stick to anyway. So she left Club Soda so I could join. And that's how I started. I joined on the first day I stopped drinking, because she said it's one of the most important things you can do is to have a community around you. And I still stick to that now. I think it's so important to have a community of like-minded people, because you're on your own. It feels so lonely.
Yeah, we're gonna come on to how to make the change. But yeah,
sure.
Thanks, Ian.
Yeah,
You've given a really rich sense of kind of where you were at. So, Lateef, what were your reasons for drinking at home?
Yeah, just to say, sort of, thank you, Laura and Ian, for sharing that. And it's just so interesting that in different ways. So I'm not a mother, you know, I didn't necessarily drink in the exact same way as you did, Ian, but I see so many similarities, and just that feeling of a pattern and being on a treadmill, and I guess coming to the realization of, oh, actually this isn't working for me. So I think my drinking is, and I think, you know, I'd just like to say I'm not perfect with this, and I think I'm still on a journey, and there's still development for me to do. But it's very linked to stress, and I think when I really got into like problems with my drinking was when I was quite stressed at work, and I would use drink to kind of, okay, well, if I have a drink, then I don't feel stressed anymore, or I've got the buzz of feeling tipsy or the buzz of feeling drunk, and then that's okay. So I fixed it. But I hadn't really fixed it. I was just kind of masking it, you know, very poorly, and making it worse, and kind of throwing myself into feeling hungover the next day, having to drink the next day. So I really felt like I was on this treadmill where every single day I would invent a reason to drink, and it just became my pattern. And then I'd drink because I was hungover, so I didn't want to be hungover, so I've got a drink, and then it's just, there was always a reason. But yeah, finding myself basically stressed was a big trigger for me, and my drinking. And again, if I'm honest, even still now, and I think I have made a lot of progress there, but I can still see more to make. So yeah, very much kind of linked with my relationship with work, and previously been in quite all-consuming jobs where it becomes your life. And so, yeah, just feeling like you're on this treadmill of, I finished at 11 today, so I've just got to have a quick drink because now this is my time. This is something for me. Or, you get to Friday night, it's like, oh my God, I've had the most busy week. So this is for me. Now I'm going to drink. Now this is fun. And just alcohol being the answer to every problem, issue in life. I think, Richard, you at the start, you said to talk about the positives as well. And I think it is probably useful to do that. So also, there's this relationship between alcohol and celebration. So if anything good did happen, it was like, oh, okay, great, have a drink. And then I guess you associate good news or something good that happens with a drink. Or a big thing that we kind of think about at the Wagon is champagne's often given this sort of hero space. It's like, oh, well done, now you have a champagne. Like, what's the alcohol-free version of that? But yeah, I guess the positive was, oh, great, we got that project out. Let's have a drink. Which, if I'm honest, again, kept me on that treadmill.
Thanks so much for sharing, Lateef. And Emma, reasons for drinking, either for you or indeed people you work with, obviously in confidence, but yeah, any patterns that you see, I guess, with the reasons why people drink at home?
Definitely. Thank you, Richard. And I hear you, Lateef, as well. I think that stress was definitely part of my experience. That kind of running on empty, and I say it before, as caffeine, alcohol, and adrenaline. I think that was the most of my 20s and 30s. And then when I got into my 40s, and this is what I find with a lot of my clients too, when the perimenopause hits, there's a whole load of symptoms that come with that for women, which is like from sort of 40 onwards, really, 40s until you're sort of, the average age of menopause is like 51, 52. So you've got almost a 10-year period leading up to that when women get symptoms that are like anxiety, depression, all kinds of things that slip under the bus. And because nobody really talks about menopause or the perimenopause, these are things that people end up self-medicating with alcohol. And suddenly you find that women in their sort of mid to late 40s, their drinking's increasing heavily because they're trying to cope with the stress and anxiety of modern day living. And often you've got parents who are starting to get older, and then you've got teenage kids who've got their hormones going crazy. You've got your hormones going crazy, and certainly that was my experience. So that was my journey for sure. And I think reflecting on what you guys were saying as well, that finding what your identity is, because your identity is so entwined with booze. It's a bit like my identity as a corporate marketer before I finished this. That was my whole identity. So when my career finished, I was like, who the hell am I? Same when you stop drinking, who the hell am I if I don't drink, if I'm not the drinker? It's my best friend, my lover, my hobby, everything. But yeah, for sure, there's a lot of big journey there, isn't there? I think, and finding what your identity is when you move from drinking or to more mindful drinking, for sure.
Fantastic, thanks guys. So I know I didn't ask you to kind of prepare it on the basis of talking about reasons first of all, but I think it's so helpful because it helps us realise that actually there's so much going on. So if anyone watching this, listening to this and thinking, why can't I just change? It's like, well, there are a lot of very good reasons keeping you trapped where you are. And I think we've covered a lot of ground, but I think I'm going to summarize that as kind of 7, I think, big themes. I'm going to very quickly run through these. So other people, we talk about how other people, and we're going to hear from Ian in a moment, how other people can be part of a solution, but other people can be part of the problem. Price. It is really, really underestimated, the degree to which price plays a role. So next week, the Chancellor will probably freeze alcohol duties, get a big cheer, and condemn hundreds of people to death. That does happen every year. And we've been tracking alcohol duty and death rates. The link is direct. It's just not acceptable. But yeah, we all think it's okay. So we need to be lobbying around price. We've talked about stress and anxiety, and I guess mental health is a huge area. I'm sure you come across that, Emma. I'm sure we all relate to that, and I think Laurie, you talked about that really clearly, as did you, Ian, talking about anxiety, and I think how those mental health stresses are hugely intertwined with alcohol. So if you're struggling with those and you're struggling with alcohol, you've got lots to do with. But don't worry, we are going to get there. The rest of the seminar, we're going to focus on the solutions, and you're going to feel inspired. The fourth one we talked about actually is escapism. And I think actually escapism is probably one of the least problematic reasons why people drink. I'm not saying it's not problematic, it's one of the least problematic. Being able to escape the human experience has been something that all of our ancestors have done in every human society ever. And I think it's kind of okay occasionally for us to lose it and to lose ourselves. The problem is when that becomes your default. The problem is when that becomes your main way of operating. So there's nothing wrong, in our view, Alcohol Change UK as an organisation is not against drunkenness, for example. It's part of the human experience. The problem is where that becomes harmful to your life because it becomes embedded and habitual. The fifth area we touched on is the treat and the my time, and you talked about that really nicely, Lateef, I thought, and I think it really gave us a sense of like how that positive association we create, and it is a created association. There's nothing natural about this particular chemical substance and feeling good about yourself, but we buy this marketing, don't we? We buy these stories, we buy these associations, and they become deeply embedded. Which leads to identity, which Emma touched on. So they become part of who we are. And then I think the final one, the seventh in the list, I think identity is really key, but identity links to culture. And actually, we don't just have a personal identity, We have societal identities. We are a drinking culture. And again, Laura, you talked briefly about Facebook for mums and the gin o'clock and gin-dependent women and all this kind of awful. I mean, I just think utterly anti-feminist associations between alcohol and womanhood and motherhood, and also adulthood. Actually, in my experience, I was a very, very heavy drinker from the age of about 17 onwards, and for me, I just ended up realizing that I was probably not going to see the grandchildren. That was the big moment for me, and it was about the long-term health risks. It was about looking at just, I'm playing Russian roulette. I don't want to. I don't want to play Russian roulette. Can I stop playing this game? It's a crazy game, and it's not doing me any good. And just realizing that if I wanted to live a long and healthy and happy life, I could carry on drinking and get away with it, but it's pretty unlikely. And I wanted my risks to be best. I wanted my risks to be in my favour, not against me. And it also clicked that I was an adult. I was 40. Who was I proving it to anymore that I'm grown up? So yeah, I kind of think I now look back and I see kind of that heavy drinking phase is actually a thing of young adulthood. And for me, there's a maturity that comes from realizing you don't need alcohol to be an adult, which I sometimes worry about people older than me who maybe are still locked in that association. So I think we've covered a huge amount of ground there. And what we're going to do for the final half hour of this seminar is talk about top tips, solutions, but also some personal stories and journeys for how we got out of where we were. So I'm going to mix the order up a little bit. So Emma, if you wouldn't mind going first, just tell us, your top tips and/or personal experiences for how to stop drinking at home.
I guess for me, it was around finding a bit about this identity thing, really honing into what my values were, and then letting those kind of lead me. So I found for me, one of my core values is personal growth. So I love learning. It's really important to me. So one of the things I did was start to investigate the things that I enjoyed learning wise and enroll in some online courses and things like that. I found that really helpful. Another thing that I did, I'd always wanted to do ocean swimming. And I joined a local group of midlife women who swim in the ocean. And then they started doing things like every full moon, they'd go and do nudie swims in the full moon, boobs to the moon, it was called. And just little things like that just sort of really light you up and fill your cup. And just starting to find out these things. Who am I? What do I actually like? It can be such an exciting and such a wonderful journey to go on. Just getting back in touch with yourself, getting back in touch with your body, getting back in touch with how you feel inside. That's certainly been my experience. I even tried life drawing again this weekend on Zoom for the very first time since I was like a teenager. So much fun. So I guess that's it for me. Was just, and what I encourage people I work with to do is just start to work out, what do you actually like?
That's so fantastic, and I think Ian's got a smile on his face thinking about the naked swimming. I think you may have a new,
middle-aged ladies.
You may have a new convert there. Although in Britain we call it sea swimming, not ocean swimming, because everything's a bit smaller in Britain. But yeah, you've got big things in Australia. You've got oceans and massive continents. We've got the North Sea. But thanks so much, Emma. That was really nice. And I think linking that with values, and linking it with personal growth is such a positive way to see this. Thank you so much. So Lateef, to you next. Top tips for stopping drinking at home.
So I think I'm going to answer this in a sort of really broad way, but I'm going to dig down on some things. So, my personal experience with drinking was coming home feeling stressed and just reaching to it as a default. And I think setting myself up so that I was kind of prepared and ready to not default was a massive change for me. So, a big problem that people have often when people start drinking is that, okay, well, what do I drink? I don't want to drink a litre of orange juice. I don't want a litre of Coke. I find water boring. What's there for me? And I think you know, the knowledge is and the choice is growing hugely, but there's probably still a way to go. And I'm a really, really big advocate, particularly in my, you know, my friendship group, but in my work, around what is it that you enjoy taste-wise about drinking? Do you like a sweet drink? Do you like a smoky drink? Do you like a drink that's more bitter? What is it that you look for in a drink? Because there are literally hundreds of products on the market. This is just a few back here, but there are so many ways you can enjoy an enjoyable drink at home. And if you can kind of figure out what that is for you. So, do you know what? I used to drink G&T, so, you know, something that's refreshing about that bitterness just gets me. Well, sort of set yourself up so that when you are, you know, in that moment, you've got the option to have an alcohol-free choice and not just, you know, default back into your own habits. So I'm a big advocate for preparation and kind of being prepped with something that's going to work for you and that's going to kind of scratch that itch, but also just knowing what it is that you are looking for taste-wise, because it's not really going to work if you're trying to change your habits if you buy tons of alcohol-free beers that you don't enjoy. You know, there are so many different alcohol-free beers, and you might love one but hate another. And if you've just bought 10 of the ones that aren't for your palate, then it's not going to work. So really kind of take the time to prep, to understand what it is you're looking for, and your chances of success just increase hugely. Another top tip that really worked for me was if I thought, okay, I was going to have a wine, starting with an alcohol-free drink and saying, okay, well, I'll start with that, and then I'll see if I need the wine afterwards. And so many times you'll find actually, that was actually quite pleasant. I don't know that I need it. So just giving yourself the option of choice, basically, and including some great alcohol-free options in there is, for me, was actually life-changing.
Thanks, Lateef. That's so helpful, and I think it's really great to hear about alcohol-free adult drinks and those alternatives being essential. To me, it was essential. I don't think I would be. I'm 800 days dry today. I don't think I would be 800 days dry today. Thank you. Without alcohol-free beers, and I think they were so instrumental in that, providing that bridge. My wife and I reflected the other day that, oh my God, we haven't had an alcohol-free beer for 2 weeks. Wow, but in the early days it was like 4, 5, 6. Keep going with alcohol. And as you say, finding the stuff that I really liked, and I was very lucky. I found part of my job involves trying alcohol-free drinks and writing reviews of them. So I was able to take the time. But you're right, it's not always easy. So thank you so much for sharing that, and for Emma for your inspiring kind of thoughts about values and personal growth and recasting our identity. I love the idea that we can, we're like a metal statue, but we can melt ourselves down and make ourselves put ourselves into a new shape. It's really exciting. Okay, Ian, do you want to take us into kind of your experiences of taking control of your drinking at home?
Yeah, what Emma and Lateef have already said is so true. This I particularly relate to Lateef, not so much Emma doing boob swimming, but Lateef for sure with the alcohol-free drinks. They were an absolute godsend to me, and I would, if I didn't have them, I don't think I'd have managed to do what I was doing. Almost as part of the ritual of coming home from work, and whenever I got home from work, I'd crack open a beer. And I was always, although I drank a lot of beer, I would always drink good beer. I wasn't ever one of these people that drank Foster's, or if you drink Foster's, fair enough. But I liked my beer to be, I like real ales, and I liked a really good, strong depth of flavour. And I didn't like the generic beers so much. So I'd always buy some decent quality beers. So, and they're recreated really, really well in the alcohol-free market. They've got some absolute beauties. I believe some of them have won awards alongside, ahead of alcohol drinks. So the choice is incredible. But for me, it was a really important part of me getting home from work, cracking open a beer, and kind of going through that habit, that ritual of having a drink when I got in. My mindset was vital. You have to have the correct mindset, because otherwise you're going to drink that alcohol-free beer and you're going to think, oh, I'm not getting pissed. What's the point in drinking this? Oh, sorry, am I allowed to swear? Yeah, so yeah, you need to have the right mindset. You need to be absolutely clear, crystal clear in your head exactly what you're doing, whether you're stopping completely, whether, like Lateef, you're going to moderate a little bit more. There can be no blurred lines at all. You need absolute, and I can't stress this enough, absolute clarity about what you're doing. Because when I first tried to kind of cut back or stop drinking, I was pretty unclear about what I wanted. I was just like, oh shit, I'm drinking too much. Maybe I need to cut back a little bit. And I'd have these vague rules about just drinking at the weekend, or maybe I'll have one beer after work. But if it's a stressful day, maybe I'll be allowed 2 beers. And I was just all over the place in my head. And it wasn't until I was 100% clear in my head what I wanted to do, which was completely stop. It became easier. Drinking alcohol was out of the question. It wasn't part of the equation. It was just not an option. So once I had that clear in my head, I could come home from work. I could satisfy that habit and that ritual of having a beer after work. And over time, like you, Richard, you were saying you drink a lot more of alcohol-free beers when you first stopped, and then you haven't had one for a little while. And I'm exactly the same. I'll drink maybe 4 or 5 a night when I first stopped drinking, because I was drinking at the same kind of rate maybe that I would have done, maybe not quite as much, but when I was as was when I was a drinker. But over time, you develop a better relationship. I have the relationship with alcohol-free drinks now that I wish I had with the alcohol variety. When I was a drinker, I was thinking, why can't I just have one beer? Why can't I just maybe have, go out for a night and just drink 2 beers over a whole night? I can't do this. And that's what I do now. I'll buy a 4-pack of beer and they'll last 2 weeks. And it was unheard of. The 4-pack would last me about an hour before when I was a drinker. So yeah, the alcohol-free drinks really worked, really helped. And like Emma said as well, you've got to start really looking into what you enjoy doing. Kind of go back to your inner child in a way. Remember all those things that you maybe did before drink took over, before everything was about drinking. For me, I loved writing. I really enjoyed writing and reading as well. And I could never read when I was drinking because I'd just forget where I was, and I'd read a whole book and I wouldn't have a clue what was written. So when I stopped drinking, I read a lot. I read a lot to educate myself about the dangers of alcohol, what alcohol is. I read a lot of quit lit books, the usual ones, Claire Pooley and Catherine Gray and William Porter, all recommended. Jason Vale's book was really good. So I just read and I educated myself, and I started writing a little bit as well, which is where my blog kind of came from. But yeah, you kind of need to change your normal routine, or the routine that you had when you were a drinker. It's really important, because if you come home and you sit down and you watch TV, maybe like you did before, it was a really big trigger for me to sit down and watch TV for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I couldn't do it because I associated that with getting pissed. So I would not watch TV. I couldn't watch TV for the first few weeks until I got my head around things a little bit more. I couldn't play my guitar because I used to associate that with drinking. So I recognized the trigger. You need to recognize your triggers and you need to avoid them as much as you can. So I would not play guitar and I would not watch TV. So it left not very much to do. So I'd read a lot and I cleaned a lot as well. My flat never looked so tidy. Just distractions. Distract yourself with anything you can. Exercise. I exercised a lot more. I go for a run when I got home from work instead of just lounging around getting drunk. Yeah, but I think, and community. I mentioned it earlier. Community is so important because you need like-minded people that are going through the same thing as you, because you're going to feel very alone to start with. You're going to be overloaded with people getting drunk. It's going to be everywhere. It's going to be on movies. It's going to be on TV shows. It's going to be in everything you read about people getting drunk or drinking. So you need people around you that are going through what you're going through, and can understand the troubles and the stresses that trying to get sober can bring. So yeah, joining Club Soda was one of the most important things I ever did. But it doesn't have to be. It can be any community. AA works for other people. There's lots of different ways you can do it, but it's so important, I think. So yeah, that's kind of how I did it, and it worked.
Thanks so much for sharing it. Yeah, that was really, you covered so much ground there as well. So fantastic. Knowing your triggers, distractions, exercise, some really practical points. Breaking associations, I think, is such a big one. So for those of you that like an app, I recommend our app. I think it's fantastic, called Try Dry. It's got this new function in it now called missions, where you can give yourself a mission to try something that you've not tried before. And I think this growth mindset, this experimental mindset, is so important. You know, you're not always. I mean, I think I take your point, Ian, about being clear, and I think that probably helped you a lot. I see a lot of people kind of not being completely clear at the beginning and starting off on a bit of a journey, and that clarity can come later. But I think that's okay as well, because I think that you get that experimental mindset where you're going, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. You're going to try moderating, I'm going to try cutting back. And actually, a lot of people need to go through that actually before they'll move to a situation of being kind of, deciding that's not for them. And I kind of think that flexibility about what your goals might be is so powerful.
Can I just add that I agree with you entirely, and I think I'd gone through a period the previous years before I stopped drinking of that. Maybe I can moderate, maybe I can do this, and it didn't work for me. The only thing that worked for me was that, like Laura said earlier, all or nothing. I had to stop completely because nothing else was working. So I think I went through that phase of kind of experimenting with moderating and everything unconsciously before I eventually did stop. So yeah,
fantastic. Thank you so much. So Laura, over to you. We'd love to hear kind of your tips and your experiences, and how would you recommend other people stop drinking from home?
So like Emma, I think and actually everybody on the panel, I think there's a really exciting journey to be had in discovering who you are in a world without alcohol, in your world without alcohol. But I think there's also a really strategic approach you can take to it. I think nature hates a vacuum. So if you take something out of your life that's really, really important, has been a big part of your life, and you don't prepare and think about how you're going to replace that with more positive and helpful habits, it's going to be really hard, I think, to make that change. So I kind of had very quickly, 15 years ago, I gave up cigarettes, and I learned from that experience that you can't just take something out, you have to put something back in. And actually I ended up drinking more alcohol while I was giving up smoking, because I'd have, a sip of wine, and then I'd be like, oh, I don't have a cigarette. Okay, I'll have another sip of wine. And that didn't work, obviously, So I kind of had quite a pragmatic approach at first. I was like, what are the times of day? What are the things that trigger me? What are the moments in my day where I struggle? And for me, it was really clear. It was around about the time I was cooking the kids dinner, getting them into bed. And, that's when I'd probably have a glass of rosé or something as a treat to help me through it. And then once the kids were in bed, I'd come downstairs. I'd have another couple of glasses of rosé before I knew it. I'd had 3/4 of a bottle, have a headache already. I'd get my hangover pretty much by 10 o'clock every night, because just, in my 40s, you can't do it anymore, can you? So it was really clear that there were two really important points in my day that triggered me. And so I put plans in place for them. So the first one was very much about what Lateef was saying. I made it sort of like a game or a challenge to find and taste lots of different alcohol-free options. Some of them were replicants of alcohol, so alcohol-free gin, alcohol-free beer, but also things like kombucha, which I'd never tasted before. I had some really lovely teas. I had this lovely jasmine tea that I would drink. And these things had a ritual to them, just like opening the bottle of wine had a ritual. So I wasn't, getting rid of everything. I was keeping a lot of the same habits. I was just changing the kind of medium. And that really helped. And then in the evenings, though, I don't know if you've noticed throughout this session, I can't keep still. I have to fidget. And I've been like looking around. It's a whole hour sitting here. Zoom is not a great medium for me when I'm working, but I knew I needed to do something with my hands. I knew that I couldn't just sit down and watch TV with my husband. And also, you know, my husband's a moderate drinker and he continues to drink, and you know, that was always going to be my reality. And he has like 3 beers a week by some magic, and always has done, and then goes out for a night out with friends and has maybe 5 or 6. And I just like, how do you even do that? So, you know, he had his groove, but I couldn't tell him. I didn't feel you have to stop drinking at home. I was like, when I stopped drinking, when I stopped smoking, I did it before the smoking ban when I worked in a pub, because I wasn't going to be told to stop drinking. I was stop smoking. I was going to do it myself on my terms. And I did really feel that way about stopping alcohol. So the next thing I needed to do was find something to do with my hands. And about 10 years before, I tried knitting, and I was terrible at it 10 years before. It was just frustrating, and it was boring. And I had this sort of really negative mindset about people who craft, you know, really judgmental of me, actually. And I was like, oh God, they're wasting their precious time. They should be out in the clubs. They should be out doing this and, you know, getting wrecked with their mates. And then I just dug out my knitting needles. And before long, like, I was knitting all the time and enjoying it so much. Really making some lovely things. I was making leg warmers for my kids. I made myself some really nice scarves. And I was like, who even am I now? Like, who am I? This knitting person drinking jasmine tea. And I was like, well, actually, no, that's pretty cool. And that's a good identity to have, right? That's a great identity. And then I thought, okay, so if I can knit, maybe I can do some other stuff. So then I started, like, you know, Googling craft sites. Like, a whole new world appeared to me. And I was just like, whoa, there's a lot there. But, you know, I picked out embroidering. I've tried paper art. And then suddenly, you know, what was a strategy to get me through, suddenly, without really thinking about it, became a bit of a passion, and something that met so many of the needs that I were being met by drinking alcohol, fidgeting being big one of them for me. So that was really important and a real joy, and is still a joy. And I still love finding new crafts, and I'm about to make myself some clay earrings. Don't know how that's going to go, but it's going to be, it could be good, it could be bad. But just to go back to the community side that I think everybody has mentioned, whether it's swimming with the ladies in the ocean, whether it's online and you find a community or whatever. I used to be in a ladies football team in my 20s and early 30s, and drinking was a big part of that culture. And so, you know, you have to find other ways to connect. And especially if you work from home and you're the main carer at home for your children, reaching out and finding that, for me, Club Soda has been absolutely key. I've met Ian online on the Club Soda website, Facebook group, but lots of other people, and you connect with people all over the world, and they're very, very interesting, full lives they're living, and you learn from them. So it becomes, like I say, these strategies that you put in place just somehow take over and become really healthy ways of living your life, in my opinion, anyway. And I could go on, but I won't. I'll hand back. But yeah, I feel very, very positive about the future now, in terms of having an alcohol-free identity and feeling really proud of that.
That's so fantastic to hear. I find that inspiring. I'm kind of, in the same space you are, but I still find that inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing, Laura and Ian. I think that's fantastic. And I like the idea that nature doesn't like a vacuum unless it's in Ian's hands, cleaning his house with it. But it's so true. And this idea that we need to replace these identities, but we're replacing these identities with things that are so much more interesting and enjoyable. But isn't it amazing how you said how you were judgmental about craft? And I think that comes from that very formative stage of sort of being 15, 16, 17, 18, where so many things, where we're so judgmental, aren't we? And it's amazing how that gets hard baked into us almost.
Can I just jump in there, Richard? Because when you're 16 and 17 on MTV and on the things, there aren't really cool adverts of crafters roller skating through bars holding Bacardi breezes, are there? The image you get given as you grow up in our culture is one of, this is the only way to be cool, or this is the only way to have value in our society. And I think that what I think Club Soda do and other organizations are beginning to do really, really well, including Alcohol Change, is that opposite narrative, a new positive narrative, that alcohol free. I don't like saying the word sober. Sometimes sober feels like, I'm really sober. I like being free. You know, alcohol free is is about embracing all these other things that once you take your alcohol blinkers off, that have been going on around you all the time, and you just haven't been in the mindset to see it.
Thanks so much, Laura. Yeah, alcohol freedom is a great phrase, great phrase I use as well, and I loved you sharing that. Thank you. So yeah, we need to think about what we're exposing our young people to in terms of marketing. So I'm just going to say a couple of brief words about Alcohol Change UK, because I think that's useful. So I think what Club Soda is fantastic at is providing that space. I think what Laura and I talk about is that, you know, what Alcohol Change UK is also trying to change that world we're in from a political point of view and a policy point of view. So we encourage people to join Club Soda, and I would like to encourage people, if they're interested in being activists or campaigners around this, we can change this. It can change and it will change, but it will change faster if we work together, and if we work together now. So if you're interested in activism or campaigning, do join Alcohol Change UK. You know, our website's there. We also have one of the biggest selection of alcohol-free drinks reviews on our website as well. So like many people, like Club Soda, we believe that the alcohol-free drinks play, as they were for Ian and I and others, an essential role. I really mean I'm not sure I could have done it without. So critical really. And I think finding that taste, as Lateef said, is so important. So those reviews are helpful. And then I mentioned the Try Dry app. The Try Dry app was finalist in the recent UK App Awards. It's one of the best apps out there. We think it's non-judgmental. It's not a sobriety app. It's not just a drinks tracker. And those missions, the ability to set any goal you like, I think is so important, because so many of us are told what to do, right? So many of us got in this position in the first place because we were told we had to drink. And I think we need a world when we're not being told what to do. And I think that's what this app does. It helps you to find your own way, find your own journey. So that's the app, Try Dry. We've got a few minutes left. So I'm going to ask us all just to say kind of one more thing kind of by way of wrap up. So this is just anything else that you've not covered that you think you'd like the listeners or viewers of this to see or hear, or any final words. And it can be something that you've already said but you want to emphasize. That's fine. It doesn't have to be brand new. Or it could be a new thought that you've not yet had the opportunity to get over. So we're going to go Lateef, Laura, Emma, and Ian in that order. So I'll put you on the spot, Lateef. Anything?
No, please. No, it's great. Firstly, a big thank you. I've found this conversation helpful on a personal level, so it's awesome to kind of be around this energy. And yeah, my last kind of word is that in line with, you know, how to stop drinking at home and offering the options, we're going to be releasing a product which is a cocktail delivery box, which is everything you need to make an incredible high quality cocktail at home. And you can kind of find that on our socials. So that's instagram.com/thewagonaf, and that should be available from around December. So that will hopefully help some people try new habits around alcohol. And thanks.
Fantastic. So you can become a craft mixologist in your own right, in your own home. Fantastic. What a better place to be than just drinking yourself to death in your own home. Okay. What did I say? I forgot the order I said. Did I say Laura next?
I think you did, but I couldn't remember, so I'm glad you said that. Well, I think I've been quite clear about how I think it's a really great move for people to make. It's not an easy one, but it is really, really worth it. I think one of the things that stops people from drinking is this belief that life after alcohol is just a sort of sepia version of the life you were living before. And actually, it's the complete opposite. Once you take that substance out of your body, even if you're drinking, you know, not huge amounts, it has a big effect on your energy levels, on your enthusiasm, on your mood. And when that leaves your body, and you know the chemical and physical things go, I felt like someone turned up the volume on life and Technicolor, and yeah, you still have bad days. My kids still scream in the evenings and they annoy me, and I love them and all this kind of stuff. But you just can be much more present and have a much more sort of fulfilling and authentic life. And I don't think I'd trade that for anything now. And also, thank you guys. I've really enjoyed this too. Really have. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Laura. Emma.
Equally, it's gorgeous to be with you guys. Really nice to meet you all, for sure. And just also to kind of reiterate around the alcohol-free drinks piece, because I also found them very useful. And I often work with clients. I think that quite often people can have a feeling of restriction. I can't do this, I can't drink alcohol. And one of the things that I find really helpful, and a lot of my clients find really helpful with alcohol-free drinks, be they replicants or something completely different, like a fancy tea, like Laura said, is the idea of having an abundance is really nice. So instead of going into like, I'm going into kind of restriction, just that concept of being, you know, well, I can drink as much as I like. I've got all these different things to choose from. So is a really nice way of thinking around it.
That is a fantastic word, abundance. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Emma. And Ian, final thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate what Emma said, actually. Focus on it's kind of connected. Focus on the positives. Focus on everything that sobriety can bring you rather than everything that you perceive it's taken away. Because it's nothing like you expect it to be. It's so much more, like Laura said, like you've all said, actually, it is so much more. I just thought I'd stop drinking and that would be it. I just wouldn't drink anymore and it'd be boring and blah, blah, blah. But it is utterly incredible and it's completely changed my life. Mental health is just so much more under control. Everything is just, I've got a lot more money. Well, I don't know where it's gone, but I've saved quite a bit more that I wouldn't have spent on booze. But yeah, I haven't really got that much more to add other than get lots of cake and ice cream in if you're going to stop drinking, because when you take alcohol away, you take away a lot of sugar. There's a lot of sugar in alcohol, and a lot of cravings that you have. It's not actually alcohol you're craving; it's sugar. And if you've got sweets, biscuits, it's terrible for a diet for a bit, but don't worry about it. You can sort that out later. I used to eat a litre of ice cream a day when I stopped drinking. I was just like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I never used to like sweet stuff, but you'll get this insatiable appetite for sweet things. So that will help with cravings. So if you are going to stop drinking at home, then do that. Get lots of sweet stuff in, and don't worry about it. Just ditch the ice cream a few months later, maybe. But yeah, and I'd like to say thank you for inviting me on, and it's great to meet you all.
Thanks so much, Ian. So yeah, the sweet sugar cravings are a thing we all recognise. If you've not been there yet, you'll get there. And yeah, it's very, very common. So just sort of final thoughts from me then. Firstly, I want to thank anyone who's watching this and enjoying this. I hope you found this useful and inspiring. This is for you. So this is for you. If you found this useful, fantastic. If you need more help or more support, do check out the Alcohol Change UK website. We've got loads of materials on there that can help you understand if you may have an issue, and loads and loads of tips and advice for how to remove the problem from your life, and live the sorts of lives that these amazing people are living. I wonder, Ian, you said you wonder where your money's gone. I wonder if it's gone on cleaning products.
No, judging by the state of my flat, it definitely hasn't gone on cleaning products.
Okay, so it was while you were going through the process, you were in the flat tidying mode, but now you've let it go again.
I'm just back to being a slob now. Yeah.
Good to hear. So yeah, we hope you got lots out of this. But yeah, do reach out, do stay in touch, and I think if I would say anything, I would say don't wait. If there's anything in here that you think is might be of interest, take action today. Take action today. Your life is shorter than you're probably going to want it to be. Most people find their life is shorter than they want. So, take action now. Experiment. Find your own way, whether it's complete sobriety, cutting back, reducing, whatever. Find your own way. But yeah, don't feel that a life with alcohol in it is essential. Alcohol is optional. Alcohol is optional in life. Life itself is precious. So give yourself the best life possible. I sound like a really naff philosophy, psychology person here, but yeah, really, it is worth it. It really is worth it. My final thought, or my final words, are to thank our panel. So let's hear it for Lateef from the Wagon and the great work he's doing, bringing cocktails to the people, alcohol-free cocktails to the people. Let's hear it for Laura and her wonderful children and her husband, who is keeping them entertained while she's on a call, and for sharing your amazing experiences, Laura. Let's hear it for Ian and his sister as well. I don't know if you're still singing, but if you are still singing with your sister, we'll all come and see you, maybe drinking some of Lateef's cocktails. And finally, Emma joining us from Melbourne. So great to have you with us. One of the images of the session was boobs at the moon, but it really captured that sense of freedom and personal growth actually beautifully. So thank you so much for joining us. Absolutely fantastic. That's it. We'll hopefully see you all soon. Bye-bye.